The protagonist of the movie is a boy named Tom who has a fairly normal life. He has a best friend named Danny, with whom he usually hangs out, and a crush named Lucy, who he thinks is the prettiest girl in school. There's also a bully named Eugene, who usually bothers Tom and bullies him. At home, Tom lives with his grandmother as his parents passed away long ago and she's the only relative he has. One night, a bored Tom ventures out of his house and passes by Lucy's dorm. Seeing her door open, he slowly enters, but shockingly, what he sees terrifies him to the core. 4 criminals are assaulting Lucy. The criminals also see Tom and immediately chase after him. Along the way, he tries calling for help on his cell phone, but at the same time, one of the perpetrators shoots him. The bullet goes through the phone and into his brain, knocking him unconscious. In the next scene, Tom wakes up in the hospital with his grandmother beside him. The doctor reveals that there was extensive damage to the brain, but an operation has made sure that he will live. However, the problem is that some components of the cell phone are still embedded inside his brain. For the time being, they cannot be removed, as going through a second operation will most likely kill Tom. A few days later, Tom is finally discharged and allowed to go home. Although he's alive, he's very disturbed that he couldn't help Lucy when it all happened. However, when he reaches home, strange occurrences begin to transpire. Now he can suddenly hear other people's conversations on the phone. He can also witness the transmission of digital data traffic running throughout the city. It's almost as if he's become an electronic device himself. Everything he needs and wants is in his brain. This has become possible because of the fragments of the smartphone lodged inside his brain. Later, he visits Lucy and apologizes for not being able to stop the perpetrators. However, she doesn't care much because when he had arrived, the damage had already been done. She also refuses to reveal the identities of the perpetrators. However, Tom promises to find them and make them pay for their deeds. With the days passing by, Tom's abilities continue to grow. He can hear people from the telephone and can even see numbers and pictures as if a computer system has been installed in his brain. That night, out of curiosity, he opens his bedroom window, only to find digital currencies flying through the city. His mind has become so advanced that he can now learn anything just by scanning through an electronic device. For instance, he can read people's phones from afar and even hack them. The following day, he returns to school and reunites with his best friend, Danny. He suspects that Eugene and his bully friends were involved in Lucy's assault, but Danny dismisses the claim. He believes that although Eugene is a bad guy, he knows his boundaries. That day in class, Tom uses his mind to stalk Eugene's phone and learns that it has a video of Lucy's assault in it. Enraged, he concentrates all his power on the cell phone and blows it up. That night, he goes to one of his friends' parties, where Eugene and his friends are also present. Tom is sure that the 4 are the perpetrators, and he confronts them for answers, but once again, Danny intervenes and takes him away. Later, Tom visits Lucy, and as they're watching the view from the balcony, they spot Eugene and his boys passing by. From the look of Lucy's expression, it is clear that they are the perpetrators. From the following day, Tom starts his reign of terror. He follows Eugene and his boys and hacks into their mobile phones. Now he can see all their activities. That night, he notices one of the boys, Rick, pleasuring himself to porn, so he thinks of an idea. The next day at class, as the teacher's giving a presentation, he hacks the projector and displays the video of Rick doing the deed. This embarrasses him in front of everyone. The same day, he visits Lucy and tells her about the incident. Surprisingly, she starts laughing. This is the first time she's seen happy after the horrific incident. Then, Tom finally reveals his ability to her and calls himself the Eye Boy. Lucy is taken aback, but nonetheless, she supports his quest to bring the bad guys down. One night, when the two are returning home after a romantic date, Eugene and his boys surround them. They're sure that it's Tom who's been terrorizing them all this time. But just when they're about to beat him up, Tom sends an anonymous message to them, claiming that they have the wrong person. This confuses the police, and they start searching for the actual person who's behind all this. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the couple runs away. Despite the close encounter, Tom is not willing to back out of his mission. Later that night, as Eugene and the boys enter a car, Tom suddenly locks them inside and starts a fire. He then speaks through the radio and demands to know why they assaulted Lucy. Terrified, Rick speaks up and reveals that they were actually ordered by a person named Cuts. After Tom gets the answer, he lets them go, and soon the car explodes. In the next scene, he finds Cuts' location and heads there for revenge. Inside, there are a bunch of thugs watching television. Surprisingly, Tom's best friend Danny is also one of them. To distract them, Tom hacks the television and plays a video of Cuts' car being urinated on. After everyone leaves the room to inspect, Tom enters the house and destroys all the electronic equipment using his powers. He also finds several packets of drugs and takes them. However, his plan doesn't end there. Tom packs the drugs in small packets and puts them in the place where Eugene and his boys live. Then he hacks into the police department and sends them information that some local schoolboys are selling drugs. The plan works, and in no time, Eugene and his friends are raided by the police and taken away. Meanwhile, when Cuts goes to retrieve some cash from the ATM, he realizes that he's broke. This also turns out to be of Tom's doing. Later, Cuts gets a call from his boss, Elman, who threatens him to catch the troublemaker interfering with their drug business. Elsewhere, from the top of the building, Tom is listening to Cuts' conversation with his boss. Using his mind, he then searches the internet for Elman, but doesn't even find a single piece of information. It's almost as if Elman is a ghost who has no records anywhere. The same night, Cuts orders all his goons to destroy all the electronic devices in the vicinity so that Eye-Boy cannot operate. However, they're oblivious to the fact that now Eye-Boy has become so advanced that he doesn't need electricity to operate. He can simply hack stuff by looking at it. One night, Tom catches wind of a big drug deal and follows Cuts through the lonely streets. However, after a while, he loses sight of him, as the latter has dumped his cell phone to avoid being caught. But Tom is not ready to give up so easily. So he thinks of a genius plan and hacks a satellite, with the help of which he's finally able to track Cuts again. After finding the place where the drug deal is about to take place, Tom learns some quick martial arts from the internet. He takes down some guys and then burns a large stash of drugs. However, before he could get away, Cuts and his men arrive and start beating him to a pulp. They almost manage to kill him, but in the nick of time, Tom thwarts them away by emitting a high-frequency sound. The following day, Tom wakes up by a river. At the same time, Lucy is waiting for him at school, as the two had promised to give their exams together. Unfortunately, Tom arrives just after the exams are over, and Lucy is disappointed that he didn't fulfill his part of the promise. Just then, the two look back and notice that Rick has taken his own life. The sight shocks everyone. Later, Tom meets up with Danny and tries to strike up a friend-to-friend conversation. Danny is angry that Eye-Boy has interfered with their lives, and now an innocent boy's life has been taken away. Hearing this, Tom feels bad and decides to quit being a hero. Later, he heads to the doctor and requests him to remove the cell phone fragments from his brain. However, the doctor reveals that it's still impossible. If the pieces come out, Tom will instantly die. Distraught, he returns home, only to find his grandmother being held hostage by Cuts, Elman, and a few other thugs. Surprisingly, Tom is unable to see Elman properly, as if an interference is blocking his view. Elman reveals that he knew everything about Eye-Boy, like what he does, where he lives, and his real identity. He then shows a video of Lucy being held hostage by Eugene and threatens to kill her if Tom does not comply. Here we get to know that the information about Tom's ability was leaked by none other than his best friend, Danny. He did everything simply for a few $100. Meanwhile, Elman brings out his phone and orders Tom to fill up his bank balance. Having no choice left, Tom obliges, and just by using his mind, he hacks into the bank server and starts filling up Elman's account. But while he's doing so, he also hacks into Eugene's phone and calls the police. After a while, the police arrive, but Eugene and his boys are one step ahead of them. They run away with Lucy, and soon, Elman and Tom also arrive at the place. The notorious gang leader then orders Tom to keep filling up his bank account. However, this time, the latter is unable to do so. This is because Elman is holding the phone. Here, we finally get to know that Elman is blocking Tom's signals using a chip that he has embedded in his head. But despite this, Tom uses all his might and blows up the phone, which creates a minor distraction. Taking full advantage of the opportunity, Tom uses his powers and takes down all the goons one by one. After this, he follows Elman outside, and the two have one final showdown in the rain. During the tussle, Lisa is knocked to the ground, and seeing this, Tom gets enraged and unleashes his inner superpower, which is a high-voltage current wave. This kills Elman in the blink of an eye. A few days later, after Tom has recovered, he returns to school, where Danny tries to apologize to him. However, Tom is having none of it, and he simply walks away. The movie ends as Lisa and Tom have a romantic dinner at the top of a building, indicating the start of a beautiful relationship.